July 13, 2009, the Supreme Court Senate confirmation hearings of Judge Sonia Sotomayor began in Washington, D.C. On the opposite end of the United States, another American continued his 8-year pursuit of justice. James Stevens versus Vons, Finding Justice.
The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Each generation of Americans has sought that arc toward justice.
In the past month, many senators have asked me about my judicial philosophy. Simple. Fidelity to the law. The task of a judge is not to make law, it is to apply the law.
I will tell you, I took being a juror very seriously because I had a man's life in my hands. I mean, I know if I had been James Stevens, I would want somebody to pay attention and to listen to the facts and to put my personal feelings aside. So I had notebooks filled with my thoughts, what I thought was right, what I thought was wrong. And when I got into the room, so did everyone else.
Had any of the attorneys asked me my personal feelings on this kind of a lawsuit, I would have told them, I don't like it. I'm extremely skeptical of the idea, without knowing any of the facts, I'm extremely skeptical of a man filing a sexual harassment suit. And I suppose that had they probed a little deeper, the plaintiffs, Mr. Stevens' attorneys, might have kicked me out. They might have exercised a peremptory challenge and booted me off the panel.
When we came into Simi Valley, we knew that we were going there to a place where the white police officers from after the Rodney King riots had been acquitted.
The case is historical in that sense that I think it defies color lines, it defies gender lines, and it shows us that people, despite your nationality, despite your ethnicity, despite your socioeconomic status, really can coalesce around some common values.
Performance ratings, you put a lot of credence to those. That's what your salary's based on, your raises are based on. He had the highest ratings. And to suddenly go from that to what Vons did to him, it was just wrong. That was first red flag.
There was evidence presented by Mr. Stevens' attorneys that seemed to point out that Vons did not act in good faith, that they tried to come up with a way to get rid of him. And what we found offensive, above and beyond the conduct of the one woman who was harassing him, was the idea that Mr. Stevens, who had worked for this corporation since he was a teenager, had essentially been thrown out like day-old produce.
We've decided that our judicial system is supposed to be this democratic, fair trial by jury of your peers to make decisions, and we've decided this as a country. But with James' case, it's almost like they gave it to him and then took it back.
Absent some legal error in the process, there shouldn't be an ability on the part of a judge to just wipe that out in a nanosecond and say, nope, you know, we're going to take all of that away. It's hard. It's hard to have that happen. It was a very sobering experience.
He was bending over backwards. Denied. They never got a motion. They make a Mickey Mouse motion, approved. I'm sitting back, you know, I almost went up there, almost said something. I was going to be almost held in contempt. You're talking about being denied due process. He was denied everything.
One thing that I think we learn as Americans is our Constitution gives us the ability to persevere, but a lot of people don't. James has persevered. He has stood up in a difficult situation where he may gain nothing except for the cause and be an instrument of light to others.
I remember my mom or my dad telling me that my first sentence, I think, was, "Daddy's at work at Vons." That was the first full, since like, you know, 1 year old, learn how to talk. And so I didn't know why. He just was at work a lot.
It was hectic growing up simply because with so many of us, we didn't have a lot to eat. And so you had to like run for, if you want the best part of the chicken. It was hectic, but my mother and my father, they provided for us as best they could. First of all, there are 9 of us altogether, 6 boys and 3 girls. I'm the third as far as in the family. James is the third of the boys. So in the family, I think he's number 7 going down. My father and my mother started us out real early. So when James was, I would say maybe 5 or 6, he had to get out there and work too. Picking up pecans in these gallon cans, or picking cotton, or he couldn't chop cotton, but he can pick the cotton.
If he wants something, he's gonna go out and get it if nobody, no matter what people say. And that's one thing that he's kind of instilled in me, is I need to have that drive to go after things. And when I was little, you know, he always wanted to be there for me. He always couldn't, but he always wanted to. I could just tell that he wanted to. And despite all these things, I know he still loves me and I still love him.
This is the kind of person that you would know if there was an issue in his life, it would not be something that he manufactured. It actually happened. Because he'll never tell you about it. He will never push the issue. You just have to let it come very slowly and very gently.
And when I met James, what I found him to be was a very sincere individual. And, you know, he was genuine, he was very articulate, he was able to explain what happened in a way that I felt was very real and compelling. And I had no doubt in my mind that he had suffered because of what had happened to him.
I have a lot of respect and admiration for him, the way that he stuck to his principles, stuck to his beliefs, and just went after it. You know, I have a lot more concern, more compassion for him, seeing what he's been through. I'm very, very concerned about his health, his safety, his well-being now, that he's been through this and is continuing to go through this, and he's in such a, like he's in the spotlight kind of now, and he is dealing with a lot of stress that he shouldn't be dealing with.
The job he knew for most of his life turned into a nightmare.
The woman that had harassed him had placed a feather duster between her legs and simulated sex.
James Stevens worked for Vons more than 25 years.
People need their jobs. They're afraid they might be demoted, that they might be transferred, that they might be terminated.
He was also the target of unwanted sexual remarks such as, "I heard you have a big load. I'd like to be between 2 men."
Sexual harassment in the workplace when women are the ones doing the harassing.
Perhaps people are afraid to come forward for fear of retaliation, for fear that what in fact did end up happening to James would happen to them.
Major verdict this afternoon in a huge sexual harassment lawsuit against the Vons supermarket chain.
The jury believed him, finding Vons Supermarket culpable and awarding Stevens $18 million. Vons has since appealed.
Say the words sexual harassment and you probably think of a woman as the victim, but that is not always the case.
He says sexual harassment by a female manager ruined his life.
It destroyed my life as I knew it. And then to be blamed for it on top of everything else. I thought once or twice about taking some pills.
The sexual harassment itself would not have been I mean, James was offended, he was hurt by it, that's why he went and complained. But really what ruined his life, what really had a huge impact on him, his family and everything else, was being terminated, losing his job, losing his livelihood. That's what crushed him.
I felt really bad for him because that was his job, like that was his career. You know, he dabbled in other things and he had his own personal ventures, but that was the solid way that he provided for us.
He always had, in my eyes, you know, the utmost integrity. He was very determined. He cared deeply about his family, and it really took a terrible emotional toll on him when the family fell apart because of him losing his job and the events and the way it affected him.